What else? And if you're like me, I didn't learn anything, then I'll just leave and go back to Boston. And there's no wrong answer. Like, what stuck for you? One word, give me a phrase.
I have to slow down. I learned that.
Slow down.
I have to slow down my instruction and
Who else needs to slow down in their instruction? Jason, you put your hand up, right? Yeah.
Should I put both on?
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about. Do I talk fast?
Okay, what else? And even if you didn't coach, was there something that stuck for you? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I love it. Static positions. You gotta use them.
You got to use them. So, all right. So, but what about stats? So, for I know Derek and Tony, you guys are newer to coaching. I just got your level ones recently. So we do things where a static position is a setup that no one's moving, and it could be a finished position. Okay, so the bottom of a squat or overhead press, and then we have something dynamic, which is the actual movement, and it's easy to see a couple of people when they're not moving. We can call that a hold or a pause. And then when you're looking for something dynamically where things are moving fast, you can really only look at one person and one particular part of the body to actually see it. So what Kara's saying here is, basically, what's the rush? Let's hold somebody in a static position so we can at least see one or two people before we pull them back up. And what was the barrier to that? What do you think was hold? Because isn't that easy to do? Isn't it easy to say squat and hold and then go look?
Well, yes, but for athlete moving, it's not easy to hold a position.
True, I hold that thought because I love that thought. But I'm saying conceptually, is, hey, squat and hold easy for a coach to say? Yes, right? And is it easy for a coach to say, hey guys, you're going to squat and hold and I'm going to check depth? Yes. Is it easy to administer? No. And that's the struggle there. So the system that we have is that we have a plan. So we know when we call the rep what we're going to look for, and then you have to be disciplined enough to see it. So you could have this layer of teaching and holding this static position, but then your eye might just be a little immature or underdeveloped, or you're actually looking. You really are looking, but you're like, looks good to me. And then what that means is that we might have to go look at some other movement and compare it. And that's like a lot of homework to do. So you have to know, you might think you're looking and you didn't see anything, and I might be off to the side, or Lauren's off to the side, and we're like, no, look, really look, can you see that there's daylight under the heels? And then Houston's like, oh. It's like, yeah, but I thought that'd be okay. That means that you see, but you're not expecting them to be better. And we call that relentlessness. Remember that level 2 people? Do you guys remember? Like, be relentless. But, back to your point, Lauren, express empathy. So if your eye is underdeveloped or you're struggling to see, even though you're looking, you have to stand them up. Because at some point you're going to make the movement worse if you're holding them overhead and they're just like, which is why the PVC pipe is a really good tool, because yeah, it sucks to hold your arms over your head, but it's not like putting a 45-pound barbell over your head. So you squat down, they go down to the bottom. You've got probably a good 5 seconds, and then they're going to have to come back up. So you're looking. Okay, I'm going to check out his hips. Okay, I need to also check Tony, but they're down. Everyone stand, that's good. Okay, I'm back down. And it's going to be that journey of, I don't see anything. I've got my group management down. I've said squat, I'm squatting. Everyone's waiting. Now I'm struggling to see. That's unaware, that's great. Now we need to move into an area where we work on seeing. But what if you do see and then you're like, let's say the chest is dropping and you say, push your hips back. Oh, that's not the right cue, because I don't want the chest to drop more. And then you're like, pinch your shoulder blades. Yeah. Now you can teach, you've got group management, now you can see, but you're struggling to give the right correction. And that will always come back, no matter how long you've been doing it, and what a good coach you are, you're going to at some point give a correction that doesn't fix it or makes them worse sometimes. Does that make sense? But I love that you said that, Kara, because this here, this static positions to see is actually what we're going to do when we go into muscle up work in a little bit is there's different ways to teach the muscle up, and depending on how many people you've got relative to the amount of equipment, there's a couple of different styles you can use, so awesome. And yeah, just to quickly go back to Lauren's is, hold them down there too long, that's not okay. You guys ever been in a class where the coaches had you hang onto a barbell for like 2 minutes? It's great because you're like, I'm not doing that to my class. But there's also value there too, so it's good to have that. No. Let's go 2 more here.
Main focus.
Talk to me a little bit more about that, Lauren.
If you have multiple movements, picking out what movement is going to be your main focus.
Oh, main focus. Sorry. Let's mess with my OCD. Main focus. I actually like main focus too, but we'll come back to that. So picking, talk to me, you tell me.
So like with yesterday, we broke it down, and the swings weren't not that big of a deal, but we didn't focus on the swings yesterday. We really broke down the wall ball, and that was the main focus of yesterday.
And what's the importance of having a main focus? And not just for you, for anyone, you know.
You can create your lesson plan around that.
Yeah, you're bringing purpose, and you're realizing that there are other things that need to happen, but today you want to get better at teaching X, so your members get better at learning X. And eventually, maybe you do have a couple of main focuses, right? You prioritize it, but maybe you do write 2 movement teaching plans within the grand scheme of the whole lesson plan. But let's first just nail one and hammer it in. The name focus though, I like. Why are names important? Personable.
You can get their attention without being right in front of their face.
Get their attention when you're in other areas of the room. I did recognize a common theme with the coaches I watched yesterday where, again, it was this, and I'm going to put a visual up here for you guys because I think it helps. This is everyone in the room and how much you know about all these movements. It's a lot. But if we water hose them with everything they need to know about the movement they're about to do, but they haven't even gone through a setup yet, it's a problem because they're going to forget everything you said, and then guess what you got to do? Go right back to what you said in the beginning and say, okay, let's do setup. So you need to take all this and ask yourself the question, what do they need to know? What they need to know. What is that? And that's the plan. Always goes back to the plan. But what I was seeing, like yesterday, was a lot of general cues. Do you guys know the difference between a general cue and a specific cue?
General
For everybody.
General's everybody. Give me an example. I'm in the room and I'm the coach. What am I saying? What would the general cue be? Well, let's pick the push press. You're teaching the full movement and you give a general cue. What might that be?
Heels down.
Yeah, that's it. Heels down! Right information. We want heels down in the push press. But there's a reason why you're saying heels down. What might that be?
Because
Someone's not getting their heels down. So what is a specific cue?
Denise heels down.
Denise heels down. And it's not always a problem. Like, it's okay to say, all right, everybody, send the hips back, because you're teaching, you're giving them a general teaching cue. But when you're giving a correction, if I'm like, all right, everybody push your knees out, but I've already got Derek here with his knees out, and he does it more, look at my feet now. So now I've overcorrected Derek because all of you thought I was talking to all of you, where actually I just want Tony to push his knees out. So name, body part, direction. That's the difference there. So I'd love for you guys, for the rest of the week and as we're moving forward, to just start being aware of when you're talking, does it have purpose, or are you just saying things? Are you just regurgitating what you know about the movement? So if it's a dip and hold, right, in a push press, I'm like, all right, everybody, feet go under your hips, toes are straight ahead, weights in the heels. Now get your hands outside your shoulders, elbows are in front, bars on the body, squeeze your belly, eyes are forward. Okay, here we go. now when I say dip and hold, already I've given a lot of information. Now I'm in the dip and hold. Okay, when I say dip and hold, you're just going to push your knees forward and send your butt slightly back. Ready? Dip and hold. Okay, let's go ahead and everybody lean back. And I've got now people here, and then I say lean back and they go here. That's a problem. Versus, Houston, you're here, can you just bring your hips forward? And now she's like, oh, she's talking to me. That's another way that you can keep everyone engaged. And like you said, it can be anywhere across the room. So name focus. Give me one more here and then we'll move on.
We talked a lot about lesson planning.
I'd love to circle back on the plan too at some point, because it's never a bad thing, but the plan is your blueprint. It allows you to do all these things well. Otherwise, you'll rely on your knowledge and everything goes out. And what we have to remember is, who are we serving? And it's the people that come to your gym, and what do they need in that moment. Always remember that when you're like, should I write a lesson plan today? The answer is yes. And why is it yes?
Because you care.
Who do you care about? Yes. Hi.
It's my mom.
Hi. Nice to meet you. You care about people. We are in the business of building relationships and creating these indestructible human beings that can go out there and pave the way for people that need help. The vehicle that we use is presses, deadlifts, pull-ups, community, nutrition. We do that in here, but your job, and this is a big ask, and we say this at the level one, like, you have the power now, you have the responsibility to go out there and be the beacon of light for people that need it. And it's not about throwing yourself in the sky and doing muscle ups. It's not about putting your body under a body weight snatch. But we use those as tasks, because hard things create good results. CrossFit is hard, right? You agree that it's hard. And the more that we try to water it down to be this cookie cutter fitness program, the less effective it will be. It's okay for people to come in here and feel nervous, intimidated to a degree. Our job is to open the door and say, look, right now you're just focused over there on Tony, because Tony's banging out 225 snatches, touch and go, like, and throwing himself up on the rings and he's crushing it. That's what you go to, because that's your fear. But what you don't see is somebody in the corner that might have one leg, right? Or somebody that's like morbidly obese, and all they're doing is using a box to get up and off the floor for their burpee. You don't see that. You only see what you're afraid of. And our job is to make everyone understand that this is a life-changing and life-saving program. And it's such an honor to be a part of it, and I'm so pumped that you guys are on this journey with me. So I'll move on, because I'll stop crying and get all excited. But do you guys feel it? And it's important you know that, because this is the goal, fitness. Not CrossFit Games, not crushing it in the open, but fitness. And I'd like you guys to try to tell me what the definition is, if you remember. Because this is the last time that you will never be able to answer this question. What is fitness? I'll give you the first word.
Work
give you-
capacity across product times model domains.
Jason, from the Peanut Gallery. Yeah. Work
Is that what this looks
capacity across broad time and modal domains. And I know that the last time you probably heard this was maybe Tyler might have mentioned it a few times, or you're a level one, and I'll call a spade a spade. I went to my level one, and I did not remember this when I left my level one. There was so much information at that course. But as I got into my journey of being a CrossFit employee and whatnot, I needed to understand what this meant, because this is how we measure what we do. This is how we actually measure progress. So work capacity just means how much power can you produce, right? And we don't use that word a lot in the gym. Like, it's a very like vague word. Hey guys, we need more power. And they're like, okay, what does that mean? What I'm saying is it's going to make that weight feel lighter. Oh, got it. Yes, I want that. Let's listen. So, but what it means is that we want to have as much power as we can across any kind of time domain. Today's is what do we have? 20-minute workout and then 10-minute piece. So today's 20 minutes. But what was yesterday? 8 to 12. And then what will tomorrow be? I don't know, maybe it's a heavy day. We want to go super short, super long, so that we're ready for anything. That's the broad time. That's why we have these energy systems. And now, the exercise scientists, they're like, you guys don't train energy systems. I'm like, what do you mean? We're constantly taking from that phosphagen pathway, which is that 10-second burst. When we do a 1-rep max snatch, or we do a 10 seconds on the row, and we go long. Right? We go to an hour or whatever, it's like 30 minutes. So we're having that oxidative aerobic pathway. And then we're in between. We have that glycolytic pathway where that's that 2-minute burst, which is really where we spend most of the time. Right? Do you understand what I mean when I say that? The length of the workout could be 20 minutes long. But do you rest? Do you rest in between exercises? Right? You do. So if you've got this phosphagen, glycolytic, oxidative, these are your 3 pathways that you're essentially building energy to use, simple terms. This is that 2-minute mark. If we did a workout like Fran, 21, 15, 9 pull-ups, how long does it take to do 21 thrusters before, like unbroken?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, so you go in here and then you're back. Right? 30 seconds on the pull-up bar, here and back. Here and back, here and back. You're constantly in this 2 minutes, under this 2 minutes of work. That's why that glycolytic pathway allows you to keep your power pretty high, and it's all it's like a sucky factor. You're constantly going there. But if I was going on a 5-mile run, I'd be in here. I'd be constantly taking from this aerobic place. Okay, short burst over here, 10 seconds. So that's science stuff, and the members don't need to know that, but you do. You need to understand why when Tyler and Ken program that we do these different time domains, because we want to be good across all of them, right? That's the balance that we have. And then modal domains. Your modal domains are your activities that you do, right? It's your movements, it's your skills. And when we talk about fitness and wanting to improve it, and this is our time going down the bottom, and this is our power across the side. When I'm doing something that's very short over here, my power could be pretty high because it's short, so you potentially could maximize 100% of your power output in that pathway. But then as I start to push out, there's going to be a biochemical drop-off. It is what it is. It's science. I don't make the rules. I want to go at 10 minutes, 100% power. I cannot do it. Maybe without some illegal stimulants that we can't have. Like, Monster, yeah. I mean, it goes like this, basically. Now, this is just, and what are these? These are your workouts. So right here, if this was like a 3-minute time domain, for some people, this could be Fran. It could be half a mile run. Are you tracking? Yeah? So if this was 20 minutes, this could be Cindy. And then we want an average here. We draw a line of best fit, and I know you remember this graph from your level 1s. Tell me you do, please. You're probably like, I had no idea what they were talking about, but I remember the graph. This here is your work capacity. It's your fitness measured across all the times that we do and all the different activities that we do. That's the practical application of the program that we do in the CrossFit gym. And it's important that you know that. Because it would be like, if we don't know what we're measuring, it's hard to get excited about it when we talk about why we're doing a muscle up today. And you don't have to go and grab a pen and do a 10-minute speech here, but just eventually as you become more immersed in the CrossFit methodology, and now you guys, for Derek and Tony here, your journey is going to be a little pushed out, you're still just going to get thrown in and be like, what's going on? But the rest of you guys have been doing this for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 12 years. It's time to revisit that manual and study it, especially if this is your full-time job. You should like have that manual there. You read a chapter like every day, and go and ask Tyler questions, ask me questions, and fall in love with the methodology, because that is going to change how you coach a class. I guarantee. I would not be in this now if it wasn't for the methodology. Like, I believe it, and that brings me to the line in the sand. And this is more for Tyler than for you guys, and he's done a great job with getting you up to where you are. And now it's time to go next level, but actually bringing it back to why he fell in love with CrossFit in the first place. And it was this line in the sand. It's the methodology. CrossFit is constantly varied, functional movement, executed at high intensity. We did a whole lecture on this at the level 1. Functional movements, they can produce a lot of power. And we have these other descriptors like safe and natural. Power, which is unique to functional movements. High intensity, it's relative. So it's not absolute. The amount of power I produce relative to Nicole is irrelevant. It's how much power can I produce relative to my capacity, my walk of life. What's my goal? Am I trying to go? Am I like Cello and Ryan and some of your other guys? I want to go and compete. Then I want functional dominance. I'm going to try to do everything I can to get to the top. But we might have somebody else, your mom, right? Functional competency. Just being able to move joints again under your own power. It's for everyone. CrossFit is for everyone, providing we understand what our goals are and how we can scale it relative to the psychological and physical tolerances of each person. Then, we've got variance. And we do variance because we're generalists. What do I mean by generalists?
We're not focused on one thing.
Perfect. Why are we not focused on one thing? I know, don't say we're generalists. You just said it. But why? What's the downfall of focusing on one thing?
You have to ignore a lot of other things.
You have to let other things go. So imagine this visual. I love this visual. I don't know if you guys know it's the circus, but back in the day, the spinning plates, you know. Spinning plates. Now, we talk about these 10 general physical skills. You've got 10 plates that are all spinning. Do you guys remember the 10 general physical skills? Big test. We break it into 2 components. What are the first 4?
Is it, coordination?
That's the
Another
last
one.
4.
So flexibility, endurance,
Endurance, flexibility, yeah.
stamina,
Yeah, one more.
it's another S, strength.
Yes. Gosh. I have the way that I do this, and it's not in that order, so I'm like, is that right? Yeah. So they're the 4 training things that we do, right? That's like getting under a barbell, and you can actually see a measurable change in the muscle and the wall density. And then we have neurological, and you said the first one, Carol, what was it?
Coordination,
Coordination,
agility,
agility,
accuracy, balance.
Beautiful. Today, the muscle up is taking care of this. Not that we don't tap into this, they do overlap, but for a lot of people on that muscle up, there's 2 parts that are organic, and when I mean 2 parts, I mean 2 functions. What's the first function you need organically on the muscle up? Right. What do we call that? First thing we do? Pull. We need to have pulling strength. What's the second strength piece? Push. But there's this piece in the middle. It's called the transition. That some strong individuals, even though they have the strength, cannot do it. That's where this lives. And actually a really great example, and I do love the CrossFit Games as an example because a lot of people watch it, but a couple of years back there was a workout called Negative Nancy. And it was, I want to say 145 pound overhead squat, 15 reps, and then they had to run like 600 meters up and around the berm. And it was, at the end, it was Rich and Jason Kalipa. They were like the top 2 going for it. And Jason Kalipa is he won the CrossFit Games in 2008. Do you guys know Jason Khalipa? He owns NC Fit, like absolute savage of an athlete. And everyone knows Rich, right? He's like the unicorn in the world. It's like, Rich Froning. So, both very fit. Lot of capacity, lot of stamina, lot of strength, lot of cardiorespiratory endurance. But there was a couple of things that separated Rich and Jason in that particular workout. What do you think it was? In the overhead squat. Efficiency. Jason is so fit that he could get that bar overhead and his arms might have been bent from time to time. He's wobbling down, but so fit he could still get the range, but he was working so much harder than Rich, who, it's Rich, GQ guy, you know. It's a beautiful man, he's just kind of, this is Rich. You've seen Rich move, right? It's beautiful. Rich was not wasting any energy. And that was less about Rich's strength, and the flexibility obviously is one, but a lot of it was also to do with where is the bar when you squat, that balance. And what ended up happening in that workout was I believe Jason dropped it and Rich continued, and I think Rich won by a hair or something like that, but that's the difference. And we're not in here trying to win games or anything like that, but if you want to continue to grow and you want your members to grow, we need to be doing work like that on the rings because it adds value. And that's why we're going to go over the muscle up today. So these 10 general physical skills matter. We need to spend a little bit more time on this neurological component, which is not a lot of effort to a degree. So if I'm driving my car and I've got a stick shift, and I don't know how to shift, am I going to be faster in this car, or am I going to be faster in the automatic? Automatic, right? Because I just go. But which car has the potential to go faster? The stick. I just don't know how to do it. And it's the same with this stuff. We just need to practice under a low intensity environment, and it's not. That's why when we put you on the transitions and we say use your legs, we're trying to get you into an optimal position with the knuckles on the chest and the elbows without having to just use the arms. That's now strength work, that's hard. Positioning. You should be able to hold that. It shouldn't be that hard because you're using your legs so your brain and your body can connect. That's why we use a PVC pipe when we do the snatch. So we can actually think about positioning and we're not just trying to handle the load. Right? We take the load out of the equation by using the legs, take the load out of the equation by using the PVC pipe. Now that brings me to this coaching skill set. It's not uncommon for coaches to want to avoid things they can't do as athletes. Hands up if that's you. You're like, I don't want to teach it because I can't do it. That's me. You guys are okay with teaching? Yeah, come on, be honest. Yeah. First time I was asked to do a handstand walk, I was like, what? And even now, my handstand walk is basically cartwheels. You know, you kick up and you fall down, you kick up and you fall down, but I don't care because no matter what my ability is as an athlete, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that I can be the best damn teacher and coach so that people in my care can do it. Because it's not about me.
There's a lot of YouTube videos.
A lot. So back in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, I spent a lot of time on the internet. Because guess what? There was no professional coach article coming out every month. And there was no spot the floor and judges calls and lesson plan, all the things that you guys have access to right now. And if you care enough, you'll take the time. If you're a full-time coach, you better make it your time, because that's your job. If you're part-time, you gotta be a little smarter. You know, obviously you've got other things going on, but you should still, if you are at a gym and you're a part-time coach, you are obligated to do some work by yourself. And come in and get your wrist slapped by Tyler because you tried something new. Like, no one ever gets anywhere by always following the rules anyway. As long as you're taking care, you come from a place of care, it's positive intent, it'll be okay. And we learn. So you gotta hop on there. Me and Cole Pioli, do you know Cole Pioli? He's the gymnastics. He was like, right now we have the gymnastics course, but Carl Paoli paved the way for all these gymnastic programs. He was at San Francisco CrossFit with Kelly Starrett. He had this YouTube channel called Gymnastics Squad. I spent a lot of time with Carl because no one around me knew how to coach gymnastics. But he has these beautiful progressions where he just takes the movement and he thinks about how it logically works, and he breaks it down into digestible chunks. I encourage you to do the same. Think about how the movement works, what happens first, and then just start to build a progression around it. It's fun. So spend time doing that. And so you need to and I don't know you guys very well, but you got to put your ego in the back seat, and you got to try and learn how to teach things. So the barrier of entry for a coach is some of those things. I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to go to learn. That's what Tyler's for. Go ask him. Me thinking my athletes don't want to do it. And I'll be honest, with a show of hands, how many of you guys today were like, well, I'm not going to teach the muscle up because nobody wants to do them? Hands up if you thought that. Yeah? Okay. And those that you didn't put your hand up, did you guys have a muscle up transition plan to go out there and teach it? Why not? And it's not a judgment, because back in your mind you're thinking that people don't have them. We're going to do pull-ups because it was maybe something that was put up on the sugar ward or what have you. But we have to inspire them to want to try something and not make it about the end goal, but make it about the journey. And that's all that self-help stuff right now. It's all about the journey, not the destination. But it's true. Enjoy the journey. So we inspire. As an owner, this is for Tyler, I just put up there because we're chatting. He's going back to his why. And he knows that he needs to help you guys be successful so you can break your barriers of entry down. And as the athlete, what is their barrier of entry for trying new things? What do you think? Do you know what I mean by barrier of entry? Like, why did they not want to try new things? That's a really great answer, because you're taking ownership. Lauren says because we haven't shown them. And that could be true, but why else? Like,
Maybe they think they're gonna get hurt and they don't need it.
might get hurt, they don't need it, they're not going to go out there and start doing muscle ups on trees. They're not going to snatch the groceries over their head.
So they'll hear, we're not going to the CrossFit Games. I don't need to do it.
Scared to fail, not going to the games. All valid concerns. And to a degree, like, good reason to not do something. And this is where that inspiration comes in. Because if we are excited about trying to teach them something new, and we connect with them to a point that we're breaking down their barrier or the defensiveness to try something new, and saying, trust me, we're going to have some fun. Just spend 10 minutes on it. At any point you're uncomfortable, I'll come over, I'll help you out. They'll want to try it. We had a lady in Jason's class that was like, I'm not going to do muscle ups. And Jason went over there and he worked with her, and then when he left, she was doing it. And then and he did a great job. He's like, all right, we're going to leave this here right now, because it was a lot. A lot of these people had never been on rings. He's not taught a muscle up transition in a while, and it was the right call to say, hey, we're going to leave it right here. Let's go over the board and we'll talk about some pull-up variations that we can do for the workout. But the goal is to eventually, when we do muscle up work, to then say, okay, well maybe we have half of the people on the low rings and half do something else. Then eventually we have 2/3 on the rings, and then a quarter does something else, to the point where in any given class, we've got people wanting to try some variation of a transition. Because now they've tasted it and they realize that it's not as scary as they thought it was, and they're getting better because of the neurological capacity to control those rings is helping them in other things.
What if you run across someone that still shouldn't be doing like the transitions that they want to do?
So Lauren said, what if you run into, can you hear her? Did you hear her question? So give me more context, like why shouldn't they?
Stability or strength is just not safe, like, but they're still wanting to do it.
Yeah, they don't do it. It's not a hard conversation, honestly. Or you try and find some middle ground where, hey look, we're not going to do this because when your heart rate gets really high and you've got all that pressing from the burpee, what you're doing right now that is a little challenging is going to get real hard. My job is to make sure that you can be relatively safe. So how about we try X, Y, Z? And at some point, and I don't think this would ever happen in this gym because of the culture that you have, they'll say, okay, that sounds good. And if they're like, no, I'm doing it, I don't know if there's any one person, I don't know if there's anyone in this gym that would say, no, I don't care what you say, I'm doing
And
it.
it's not so much like with like the rings, it would be more weight on a bar, like for a snatch or for a
Oh,
clean
yeah.
or something along those lines.
Yeah, when it's loaded, we do what we call a prove it round. You know, prove it rounds? You hold them in positions. So on Friday, Tyler and I going back and forth about the workout on Friday, we've mixed it around a little bit. There's going to be a significant amount of time you're going to hold an empty barbell at the bottom of an overhead squat. And very quickly people are going to realize that they do not have the flexibility and the balance and the accuracy to put the bar in the sweet spot, and it's going to dramatically change how they think about the weight on the bar in the workout. So that, you can do it not just for that athlete, for everyone. And if they're still, they're still like, can we do a little more? You just have to have a little negotiation there. Because maybe that's not the day to win for you. Maybe you get a little win and you're good with it, and as long as you're safe, you let it go. But you're tracking, you've got it in your back pocket, and you're like, next time this comes around, that help.
Yeah.
Anything else? All these questions are great, but what does it really come down to? All the questions you've asked me, have you found a theme that I'm coming back to maybe? Maybe it's not so obvious. Asking the person in your care why. We assume a lot as a coach. We see our athletes doing things that we didn't tell them to do, and what do we immediately think as a coach?
Why aren't they listening to me?
Why are they not listening? They think they're too good. They want to, but really, and this, I'll use that example if it's okay with you, Jason. There was a gentleman doing, when you've got, the bar is high enough that you can get a little bit of legs to get a little cheat to the top of the pull-up, but it's not so low that it's full legs. Do you know what I'm talking about? So he was doing this in the class, and that was not an option that Jason gave at the pull-up bar. And in his mind, he was like, why is he doing that? And what do you think after the workout? Because during the workout, as long as they're moving safe, no one's getting hurt, you let it go. He's doing work, he's getting it done. But what do you think needs to happen at the end of class? What's the conversation like?
Ask them why.
Ask them why, but not just, hey, why were you doing that? Like, really think about it. And I'm not looking for a quick answer here. Like, think about how you would approach that.
Maybe like what made you choose that progression, or what made you choose that movement for today?
Yeah, give me more. What made you, how did you arrive at this option? Maybe even before that, because that's a good question, but if you just go up and go, hey, what made you arrive at this option today? What made you arrive at that option today?
It'd be like,
Hey, what
hey,
made you
good job
like-
on the workout. What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, Tony, sorry, I keep looking at you, Tony, you're just right there. But, hey, Tony, so I noticed in the workout that you were doing great, you got your chin over the bar and your arms were locked down, you were working, but you were getting this little toe pump out the bottom. I'm like, was that a conscious thing, or did the pull get a little hard and you need a little help? Can you just walk me through your process? And you'll be like, man, I thought I could do strict, and it actually turns out that I couldn't, and and I'm like, all right, great, So hey, what about next time we grab a band and we get some assistance on there so that you can develop a little bit more strength or what have you. Or we'll just go to maybe a full jumping pull-up. Hey, tell you what, next time we have a pull-up, come grab me, and depending on what the expectation is, we'll get you in the right spot. But nice job today. See, it's just a different approach. So when I ask you what is the root of everything, it's understanding people. Yes, you need the knowledge, you need the mechanics, you need the group management, all that, that's great. But ultimately the foundation of it all is trying to get to the bottom of who they are and how they learn and what their why is. And it sounds so cheesy and cliche, it's like this kumbaya moment, but it really is true. And that was the biggest breakthrough for me, is when I understood people. And I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I've met a lot of characters along the way. In the level 2, people that just hated us. Like back in the day, remember, like no one liked CrossFit. You go up there with a bulletproof vest on, you'd be like, what is CrossFit? And they'd be like, no, pec deck's great. No, we do hamstring curls. And you were just like dodging bullets up there. And then eventually now everyone's bought in, and it's a lot easier, but all kinds of characters, you know, and it makes you better. So when you get a difficult member, not difficult that they're mean, but they just kind of want to come back to you and be like, is there something I can do to make this process a little easier for them, or can I connect them in a different way? That's what I mean by inspire. It's hard. It's a really emotional job being a CrossFit coach. If you really care, I mean, granted, you could just show up and do the thing. But if you want to be next level care, which is not measurable, it's really intangible, it's very intrinsic. If you want that next level of care, you gotta get to know some people. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here. Is that the right phrase? Beating a dead horse. But this is so important. This gets you excited about what you're doing. We're not just doing a fitness program, it's so much more than that. And the plan does not need to be paralysis by analysis, it shouldn't be. You have to find your own way there. But I'm gonna ask you when I leave here on Friday, that when you don't want to write a lesson plan and you think you've just got it, write a lesson plan. Remember this voice. Write a lesson plan, write a lesson plan, write a lesson plan. Something where it's gonna give you a little bit of direction. It could literally be, this is when I'm gonna go here, this is when I'm gonna go here. The main focus today is hip extension. I wanna make sure that I tell people, good job. It could be that simple, but you're starting, eventually you'll start, the dangling carrot will come and you'll wanna do a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually you'll do way too much. And then you'll get real nerdy like me, and then you'll be like, you realize that there's not a need, and you'll come back down. Write a lesson plan, and honestly, you should be obligated to do it. Like, it should be part of your job description. There's always things, right? There's always like, I always say, I had a day, I had a morning, kids they were not cooperating, I'm sorry, I don't have one. That's okay, but that should be the rule.
The exception.
That should not be the rule. That should be the exception, not the rule. I'm going to open up to questions about anything. And Tyler, if there's anything you want me to cover here, I've got one more thing that I'll peel back at the end. Remind me salt shaker. Because that's a good one. What you got? Progressions, group management, difficult people, capacity, programming.
Go out with the difficult people, the people that are set in their ways that will, this is how I've always done it. And it's like you can't crack it. Like, nothing that you've thrown at them will, like, they don't care.
Give me.
How did you handle Chris's muscle up? Because you just taught Chris on the muscle up in that workout.
Yeah. She was great. I mean, I don't know if she's a difficult person, but she was all in. First I asked her, do you have, what's your story? Do you want to do muscle ups? And I want to know where she's coming from. And she's like, I do, and I can do a bar, and I can't do rings. And I'm like, do you have a straight chest to bar? She's like, pull up, and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, how's your dip? And she's like, it's okay. And I'm like, so let's take a look. And then I just got her into the position, and I made a hold here, because at first she was holding here, right? That's where most people fail, is where they. And she didn't realize that she had to do a couple of other things. So I'm like, you lift your hips, and she's like, light bulb. And then I had a hold, went down, and then we had a hold at the bottom, but she jumped too high, and I'm like, get low. And I'm like, okay, take your feet off, and just kind of giving her little tests along the way to see if what she told me was true. And she was checking boxes all along. And then we got to the full thing, she did it. She struggled with her dip a little bit, which is a common thing when people, the exorcist out the bottom thing. And then we started to pull the feet out a little bit, and she still got through. It was great. But then as we started to get further out, that transition got a little sticky. And then we tried the L, and she showed me she could get down there, and it was good, but she just didn't understand the piece through the middle. So I just said, look, you have the components to do a strict muscle up, but if that ring keeps flying out, she told me that the ring, you're just going to keep failing up there on the high rings. It's not going to help you. You see the value on the low rings? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, do these ring supports, do these, hold it at the bottom, do these transitions and get really good at it until you can get to that L, and then this is going to be no problem.
And then what was her workout? So you gave her a directive for the workout.
I didn't give her a directive for workout.
Oh, you did not?
No.
She took from your moment. Like, cause she did the progressions
Oh, she
instead
did?
of, that was her scale for the workout, is she sat on the floor and did the progressions.
That's
So
awesome.
whatever you taught, she carried with her.
I didn't give her anything for that, but I think she probably would have gone to a bar muscle up had we not had that discussion. But I told her, I'm like, look, the bar is something we're very comfortable with. That's why it's a go-to. We're on a barbell, we're on a total bar, we're on a pull-up. It doesn't move. We get to kind of own the middle, but the rings are a world of their own. And it's a massive hole in anyone's fitness to not just to be able to stabilize. So that was the conversation I had with her.
But if she didn't respond to that, like if she gave you an excuse, or if we have a handful of people that will just give you an excuse and walk away from you.
Oh.
So it's like, how would you go about handling those people that wouldn't let you coach them through progressions or anything like that?
That's a really hard question, and not because I don't know what I would do. It wouldn't happen in my gym because that person, it wouldn't have got to that point with that person. Like if the minute they came in and they were onboarding, I'd be like, look, there's a couple of things we do here in my house where my salt shaker is. Salt shaker. We're open to discussions, but you're coming here for help and we're going to guide you through it. So it wouldn't have got to that part. But if I joined a new gym and I had to inherit some difficult people, I would plan my path with that person, and this would be over months of work. And it would be about getting to know them. Like it's a long process. It's not just this. It would be about me checking my ego and me not getting defensive and seeing if there's something that I can do that's going to open them up a little bit more. It's a long process. If they walked away and they were disrespectful and rude, I go to him and let him deal with it as a coach. And then he gets to do whatever. He can fire people, because Tyler should back all you guys up, right? He's got your back, so he might have to have that hard conversation. Yeah, does that help? Yeah. I know it's not a quick fix. The younger me would have been like, I would have been defensive, and I would have thought it was a personal attack, and I would have been like, they don't understand CrossFit and why and all this, and I'm just like, there's something going on that's bigger than this ring muscle up right now.
Yeah, we have one that's retired and he will tell you article and this, that, and the other, and then it's motion, it's like, okay, but everything you just told me, it's not happening, and then it's just like, wow.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, this is a whole other seminar in and of itself, which is way beyond my scope, but just through experience of learning that I always try to come back to me, like, what can I do? Did I say something? Did I instruct something? Did I give some miscommunication? Have I allowed them to treat me that way? There's a lot.
This is a pretty loaded question, and it might just be because I haven't seen you coach an evening class, but our class, and I'm sure this is the way at any gym, but has a wide variety of fitness levels.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you approach a class like that? Does your lesson plan change? Do you focus on different things? I know it's a pretty loaded question, but just in generally speaking, how do you approach those classes? Say it's a class of 20 people, you got some people that are super, super fit, some newbies, and everything in between.
Yeah, no, good question. And I do have an answer because welcome to the world of being an affiliate coach. Every class is like that.
Right.
It really is. So in the questionnaires that I sent out to you, I asked you what is the majority experience level of your athlete. And I think it helps put context to the levels. So let's call a beginner 0 to 6 months. So they don't even know the names of things, right? They're just getting used to it. Intermediate is a pretty wide scope. In some ways, I'm an advanced CrossFitter. Well, in terms of my athletic capacity on the spectrum of fitness, I would put myself as an intermediate because I can do a lot of things RX, especially when it's lighter loads and low reps on high skill gymnastics. But if you're putting me under a heavy barbell, I'm gonna have to scale the weight, all the reps. And if you're putting me under a high rep, high skill gymnastic movement, I'm likely gonna have to scale the reps. So I'm intermediate, and I probably will stay there for a while. But I'm advanced in like a rope climb or GHD. But generally, I would consider myself a medium to a high level intermediate athlete when I'm fit, pre-COVID. Now I'm just been doing burpees and lunges and what have you. But an advanced athlete is anything that goes out in the programming here, or even like if you want to say CrossFit.com, the open, they could do it RX, the whole thing, they don't have to change one thing, and they can do it within the correct stimulus. So an intermediate athlete for Fran would be someone that could maybe do 95, 65 pull-ups, but maybe their time is like 8 minutes, right? Where an advanced would be like a 2 minute or three kind of thing. And there's all these different metrics you can have. So it's important that when I say that to you guys, that you're like, okay, well, and I'll tell you just at Reebok, the majority experience level of our people was intermediate. We did have a good amount of advanced. We had maybe 2 elites. An elite is literally you've been to the CrossFit Games, not you've been to the semi-finals, not that you almost made the semi-finals, but you have been to the CrossFit Games. That's elite, right? It doesn't mean that people under that are not good, they're amazing. But for CrossFit, we consider elite CrossFit Games kind of close to CrossFit Games. So now I ask you that, in any given class, what is the experience level of your people?
Intermediate.
Intermediate?
Intermediate and beginner.
Intermediate, beginner. But do we have advanced people? So in a class of 20, how many advanced people would you maybe have? Maybe 1, 2. How many elites do you have?
No. 0.
No, has he been to the games? Did he make the semi-finals? Not elite. And I know that's crazy because he is so freaking fit, right? But, and I'm not talking about the spectrum of centre CrossFit and practice. I'm talking about the grand scheme of the CrossFit world. So here, yes, he is elite, right? But really good, really good. So yeah, but he is your top athlete, right? Is everyone else out of solo?
So,
Jason?
Daniel's pretty good.
Daniel's pretty fit.
The grunter!
Yeah.
So you get my point, right? So back to your question, I am going somewhere with this. Who are we providing a lesson plan for? It's the majority experience level of the group, which is going to be that intermediate level. Now your outliers are going to be your beginners and your cellos, and even I don't know other like people that want. I don't know who else is pretty fit. Yeah, Dan. You're not at cellos maybe level in some things, but you might need an extra challenge. But you see the problem if I went out there just thinking about the best athlete, and I made a lesson plan based upon helping Dan and cello. And then the opposite, you see the problems if I'm just massively understimulating people because I'm going beginner. So you want to try and find something that's going to satisfy everyone, but you're touching points with the people that need a little bit more. So yesterday in the workout, I went up to Stella and I said, so first of all, I said, well, what's your goal? What are we doing here? Because I was like, hey, why don't you do it as it's on the board and just go unbroken and do it as fast as you can? Which would be really hard. Right? If he tried to do that sub 8 minutes yesterday, he would have been blown up. Would have been a great workout. But he's like, well, we've been working on heavy wall balls. And I'm like, that's really great information. So scratch what I said. Let's hit the heavy wall ball and let's make it, let's do big sets and get a little dark. You know, so there's a negotiation there, but you've got to get to those people because if the goal is that everybody joins class, we're not going to specialize it for any one person, but we do have to take care of them. And that, guess where that happens? In your plan. On the other side, the new person. What do you think we should, sorry, Tal, I'll come to you in a sec. What do you think we should do for a new person that's like still not even sure what a front squat is? I know they'll come into my class.
Tell them their plan.
You tell them the plan, but even before that, what do you do before that? You don't just tell them, right? They come in like, Tony, this is what you're going to do today. What's that next level 5-star experience?
You set them up and work them through everything.
Set them up I like. It's going to be hard to work them through it while managing everything else. This is group management. First thing, if I know the workout, I'm going to take a little whiteboard or something and I'm going to write it out and I'm just going to have them put it next to the station and I'm going to make sure that they just look at that when they're doing the workout. Right? Don't worry about it right now, but just know when we get to it, this is what you're going to do. Then the second thing is your organization of your class. Where do you think it would be helpful to put your new athletes?
Back.
In the back. Why in the back?
So they can see everyone else.
So they can see everybody else. It's not the worst thing in the world to put them in the front next to you, so you can just quickly give them a little love. Back or front, depending on how well they connect. If they're real like quote unquote like train wreck, remember the level 1? Like, they just haven't done fitness in a really long time. I like them right next to me because I keep whispering to them the whole time along that. But in the back's great, so they can see what else is going on. They're nervous. Put them in the back so that they can kind of just do the thing, no one's looking at them. And so this is all the stuff that we think about before. Back to your plan, the muscle up transition we do today, we have people at our gym that went to regionals, went to games, were advanced athletes but not regional level, and we would do these transitions almost every time we did muscle ups. So the athletes that can throw themselves up there and do good sets of 10, we're still getting them through a good warm-up while the newer people are learning. But you can't belabor it. You can't keep everybody there too long or you lose the people that need some time on the hiring. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this because it's hard. Coaching gymnastics is hard. Especially when you've got like a bar muscle up, but you've got half the group that can't even do a pull-up, you've got some that can, some that can do chest to bar, some that can barely do one, and then others that can do 10 in a row. It's hard. But remember to put it back to where we need to be. You don't need to be an expert in that stuff, but we do need to make sure that we're trying to help people. The trying sometimes is more important than actually what happens. Does that help?
Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up question?
No.
So what was my answer?
To plan for the intermediate and
Not the
pay
intermediate.
attention to the outliers.
Not the intermediate.
The majority.
The majority.
Okay, yeah.
Because you might get a class that has a bunch of people
Right, yeah.
that are the majority. You've got to make sure you're taking care. But a good safe place is always the intermediate. Like, you can't go wrong with that. But yes, outliers.
Yeah.
What else? I feel like you've got something else.
Well, I feel like I struggle with this when it comes to like a barbell thing. It's like a barbell complex, like teaching a snatch, teaching a clean. Where you have someone super new, you have your advanced or whatever, and then you have your intermediate. Like, and this is what we've been talking about, like keeping people engaged, where you're not boring and you're just not losing people and all that in between. So like this progression with the muscle up, it's like, oh, like everybody can do that. And then when you get to like a barbell or a clean, like how do you keep it fresh, engaging?
For who? Well, what are you doing that is stealing from someone? So who's not engaged?
So like I've asked Tyler this question like probably 1,000 times, and it's always about like coming back to the fundamentals, and like that's always the answer, at least that I've gotten, and it's true of like dip, catch, all that kind of stuff. Like you gotta have a good squat, like all those type of things. So I kind of like know the answer to it, which is why I wasn't asking it. If that makes sense.
I think
It's
so.
kind of like if you're doing a snatch, everybody, every level, brand new beginner and elite, is gonna definitely benefit from a static position in your catch. And that can be a drill that you work on, and it can literally be like dip, jump, catch, freeze, and you're looking around. And that's how you keep them engaged. Is it's like finding the the most important common denominator that applies to everybody. And then don't be afraid to have a backup plan, right? So like with cello, you could be like, yo, I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to catch a little deeper, like start catching like at parallel, right? And then start working down. Or like today, she has a plan in her back pocket. If Ryan Cello shows up, it's like, how would you scale today's workout up for them? And like her response, which was great, was like, well, for muscle ups, the 1 minute of muscle ups, they're gonna be strict. And then she's like, if he's good at those, I might put a weight vest on him. And he's gonna actually do a simpler workout. He's gonna pull the kip out of it. And we're gonna overload him with a strict and maybe even press. And so it's like this idea of like, you can still keep it super simple, like on his progressions, right? He can still be, you could start him here, and then once he masters that, hey, try the same progression here on the higher rings. Like still work that pull through and turnover, and just work that nice and slow. And you can just kind of bump him up while you're still working on other people.
I think another thing real quick too is like yesterday during Denise's classes, the noon and the 5 had a lot of our experienced athletes in it, and sitting there and making them hold those static positions in the air squat. I think you might think in your head like, oh, they're gonna get bored, they're not gonna wanna do this, they know how to do this already, but it's going back to like, that's gonna benefit them no matter what their fitness level is. It's gonna allow the beginners to feel that position as well as the people who are more advanced. And the same is true with rear positioning. Like no matter what their fitness level is, it may not be like the most enjoyable thing, but it's beneficial for them.
Right. And I'm not necessarily like focused on just the elite. Like I could honestly kind of care
Well, that's
less.
what I was gonna follow up
Do you know what I
with.
mean? Like
I feel like the beginner trips
Right.
you up. Now let me tell you something about beginners. Remember when you started CrossFit, and some of you had a training background already, and some things were familiar, but then they were like, hey, there's this thing called the double under, and then immediately you felt like you've never done anything athletic in your entire life, and it was frustrating. Imagine somebody that is not athletic, and they're coming into the CrossFit gym. Everything is like it's less about physical intensity for them. Honestly, it's more about mental intensity. This is a very intimidating environment. Just to stand here, just to walk through that door and show up is terrifying for people, let alone talking to somebody, doing a class. And so the beginners don't typically move fast enough or heavy enough or high skill enough to ever be dangerous.
Right.
So it's okay, remember what they're trying to do. So let's say we are doing a snatch. I'm gonna pop you right there, I'm gonna give you a PVC pipe or an empty barbell, and all you're gonna do is jump and land a little squat.
Mhm.
You're gonna do that for the whole time. When I say go, you do that. And they're gonna be like, there's all kinds of things, and I'm like, you're gonna feel like you're just doing it wrong. Just keep doing it, trust me, you're gonna be fine.
Good, yeah.
Everyone else started right here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we've got this thing going on. Bye, Derek. The people that need the most care are your intermediate athletes because they're dangerous. They know enough to be dangerous and they don't know enough to be dangerous. And when we say they can do things, even yesterday you said that you're more experienced people, right? Don't confuse experience for mechanical ability. A lot of people have been doing this a very long time, myself included, 13 years. Does my squat need work? Yep. Do I hate being held at the bottom of a squat? Yes. I'm exposed, I feel my knees caving in, I'm shifting into my toes, and I don't want the coach to come near because they're going to expose me. But do I need it? Yes. So the time spent doing CrossFit doesn't mean that you're a veteran mover. It just means you know how to do it, but you still need help to do it well. So yesterday, like you said, I said the swing, everybody could do it, and no one really had a problem with that. I got to the squat though, and we started seeing all kinds of stuff, right? And it's an air squat. But a good litmus test for gyms that care about technique is walk in and see how are people's air squats. Because if people's air squats are generally good, and I don't mean perfect, and I would say this gym is one of them, is good, it means that they care about something as simple as a squat, and they take time to really fix it, and they take that level of effort and attention to everything else. And I think your gym moves like relatively well compared to some gyms that I've seen, and that's a testament to you guys that You know, we've all got places to go, but you care about getting people in the right spot. So I don't get caught up in that beginner. They're gonna be fine. And if you grab them before class, that's how you can, and that's the engagement. You get drawn into this beginner and you wanna make sure they're taken care of. There's a couple of things you need for them, and then just keep checking back.
I keep on going back to time. We have 60 minutes in a class, and if we have a 20-person class and 18 of those 20 people need something different, like how do you handle that? Like if I have 3 different whiteboards and this person needs this and this, like how do you plan? Like I know it goes back to the plan, but I don't even know how to plan or can think about how to plan for that. If everybody needs something a little different.
Good question. Just because everybody needs something different doesn't mean on that day they all get something different. The more options we offer, the harder it is for us. And it's okay, and this is why the plan and thinking about how many people in your class is so important. How many people in the class? How many rings do we have? What's the other equipment? And how hard is the skill level? Yes, in an ideal world, I would want to give you guys every option for you, but today, these are the only options that you have. It's one workout in the grand scheme of hundreds of workouts you're going to do. You get to either do high rings, lower reps, today doesn't matter to that. Low ring, some variation of low ring, kicking your feet out, or you do a pull-up. Done. Like that's it. Then someone's like, hey, I'm like, oh, why? Okay, I'm good with that. If they come up to me and they ask me, can I? And it's a good reason, I'll let that person go, but I'm not going to be like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Because that's not possible. But if it's a class of 5, you can do that.
Right.
So the bigger the class, the more equipment, the longer the workout, the higher the skill, the heavier the load, the less options they get.
I think you said a really cool thing too yesterday. You kept saying to people, if you're at the whiteboard or even in your instruction, and if you get like 1 to 3 questions, you did a nice job. If you get 3+ questions, you muffed up somewhere, right? And so like that's you not administering based on who's in your room. So like you have to like really keep that in context too. Like if there are 15 people going 15 different directions, like you said, that's you, condense it down to something that is applicable to all, or majority.
And the minute you're like 10 minutes, 15 minutes out, and you're on the floor and you're greeting people, you're checking. I don't know if you guys get to see who shows up to your class. No. You find out in the moment. Right, that was like Reebok too. So I'm checking. I'm like, all right, we see someone new. Okay, I'm like, all right, well, this is a beginner intermediate. I'm gonna keep this brief, real simple. Get the rock and rolling. If I've got a bunch of intermediate advanced, then they can do muscle ups and be like, oh guys, here, if you get on those, and I'm gonna give a little bit more, but not too much, because remember, I don't wanna lose people. So your assessment of how you're gonna do the whiteboard brief, even though you had a plan, starts 15 minutes, 10 minutes before class when people are coming in. That makes sense? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta be ready to flex. Your plan's great, but you gotta be ready to flex at any
I think
time.
in the evening that's really hard because you're on the floor and you don't know, you're paying attention to people on the floor, so you have no idea who's coming in for the next class.
And then for that, it's just a matter of as they're coming over, you're like,
And a quick.
yeah, the quick like,
Bing, bing.
all right.
And it's also what you're doing in your general warm-up, right? Like, so you said to me, like, sometimes the general warm-up in your classes are 3 minutes on the bike, and what you're actually doing in that 3 minutes is walking up to everybody in your class. Like, you don't give a rip about what they're actually doing. It's time for you to assess.
Yeah.
And so, like, the general warm-up is that time. That is your time.
Like give it something easy so you can go.
Yeah, like that should be simple and not be as demanding, so you can actually talk to people, or just assess your people.
Yeah, and Tyler's like, well, what, we only have 12 bikes, what if we have, I'm like, well, just do stations. 3 easy stations that every minute you can rotate and you can get touch points with people. And it's low teaching, you don't need to do anything crazy, but there's gonna be times if time allows to do that, yeah. So just think about your general warm-up as an assessment tool, full range of motion, about the joints, like Sarah said yesterday, increase core temperature, loosen up the muscles, and check, like I said, assessment is like checking in on people. Are they grabbing a shoulder? Are they like grabbing the bag. Jason, man, why are you grabbing your bag? Oh, I'm blown up from those deadlifts yesterday. Oh, well, we have some snatching today. You gonna be okay? Like, that little touch point right there could change how much weight he puts on his dumbbell or whatever that is. And you don't get to do that if you're just always instructing in that general warm up. So, good.
Yeah.
Quick thing on the muscle up. I'll do the salt shaker.
Yeah, we'll save
it's
that.
not for now.
Yeah.
Salt shaker's epic. You're gonna hear it and be like, that was underwhelming, but I'm not gonna take you all through it.